Welcome back into the Lions 24/7 podcast. I am Tyler Donahue, and I don't know how you started your Friday, which in my world is just known as day 54 of the Penn State coaching search. But I began mine with a 1:30 listening to the leaked audio that came out of a players meeting with Pat Kraft before the Rutgers game. I'm sure you've caught wind of that. If you haven't, I'm sure there's a way for you to find it. But things are getting really interesting in a hurry here in Penn State when it comes to the football community. Pat Kraft as the leader of this athletic department and the ongoing search for the next head coach. A lot of coverage for you on Thursday throughout the day over at Lions247.com in case you missed out on that and you're just trying to catch up. I can't imagine there's many of you who have not been paying attention, but Matt Campbell is the name that has been really on the rise. We heard a lot of confidence from Penn State sources, from Iowa State sources, and national sources as Thursday progressed. And really by late afternoon, early evening, it felt like things were really building momentum-wise between Matt Campbell, longtime coach there at Iowa State, long known as a guy who does more with less and has overachieved in that role. And many have wondered when he was going to leave for a bigger step and an opportunity to have more money, not just in his bank account, but to spend on a roster. And it was certainly sounding like Penn State presented the opportunity that was going to make him jump. But as we all know, we all lived and experienced the Kalani Sitake situation on Monday and Tuesday. We covered that in great detail on Wednesday. And second time this week that Penn State leadership went to bed feeling confident that they are on the verge of getting their next leader. But we're not going to put the cart before the horse here. We have a ton of coverage at Lions247.com. Coming off of this Friday morning podcast, I'm going to be working the phones again a little bit with some sources out in Ames, Iowa, here in State College, some national people again, just to try to get a better image of where the confidence level is at with Matt Campbell, where his thought process is. Is there a timeline in place? So I'm not going to spend too much time here on the podcast because my worry is that if we talk about one subject too long, it will be completely blown up and won't matter anymore by the time this podcast goes live. I'm not saying the deal will be blown up, but just we don't know what to talk about right now on the coaching search and with finality. And so trust me, if Campbell is Penn State's guy, if Penn State ends up being left at the altar again, either of those outcomes, you know where to find us, Lions247.com. We'll have a ton of coverage your way, a lot of analysis, and the conversation continues. I think we're closing in on 7 million views and 120,000 comments on our coach search thread, which has just been a wild ride that I don't think anyone thought would still be rolling this deep into December with this much uncertainty. But there was a signing day on Wednesday. We kind of mentioned it a bit in passing on our episode, which focused a lot on the Sitake news on Wednesday. But we're going to put more spotlight on that. We're going to actually have Jackson Ford on the show. He's a guy that I know has gotten a lot of love from Nittany Lions fans this week. He is the only member of Penn State's recruiting class who was committed when James Franklin was fired and ended up signing with the team. 11 members of that recruiting class followed James Franklin to Virginia Tech. More than 20 members of that recruiting class ended up signing with other schools this week, and they only signed 2 guys. We talked about this on Wednesday. It was late in the show. Maybe you didn't stick around to hear it, but Peyton Fzone circled back and joined the class. He had been committed to Virginia Tech at one point, to Penn State at one point, more recently to Auburn, but an in-state quarterback out of Nazareth High School, someone that we've been very interested in for a while as an athlete profile. Have some questions about his progress and as a quarterback prospect and where he can go at the next level. But we're going to dive into those topics and a bit more right now with our recruiting insider, Tyler Calvaruso. And Tyler, I had to give you a shout out on social media and on our website on Thursday because I kind of forgot to do that on Wednesday. Really appreciate all the heavy lifting you did throughout the 2026 recruiting cycle. When times were good, you were all on it. When the commits were flowing, the visits were coming, when we had a chance to watch all the prospect camps, you crushed it. And when things unraveled in October, November, and now into December, you continue to do it at a professional pace. And we really appreciate the tasks that you took on. We hope that brighter days are ahead for your recruiting coverage. But before we dive into it, just want to make sure I'm publicly praising you for the work you put in for this 26 cycle. Penn State may not have gotten the results they wanted, but we did at Lions 24/7 from your recruiting coverage.
No, I appreciate that sentiment. It's like I told you too. I said it on social media. I said it on our board. I mean, really, my biggest shout out at this point is to our subscribers and the people who continued reading my recruiting content throughout the last 2 months and our recruiting content throughout the last few months. Because I mean, look, it wasn't easy to stomach. I get it. probably didn't want to click on it and just read more depressing news if you're a Penn State fan. So I completely get where people have been coming from with that. But look, at the end of the day, we got a job to do. We got to keep chipping away at it. And that's the name of the game. I think regardless of how this search ultimately plays out, and I mean, man, what a whirlwind roller coaster, however you want to describe it. That's what it's been. We'll have good recruiting news to write about again at some point soon. But appreciate you guys for your support internally throughout all of this, and appreciate our subscribers at the end of the day, because I always say it, we wouldn't be able to do any of this without you guys.
Let's start off on a very real note here, Tyler. Penn State signed 2 high school seniors on Wednesday. 2. And I think a lot of casual college football fans and Penn State fans, they may have been aware that there were some issues with the class kind of falling apart, with the uncertainty of the situation without a full-time head coach. But plenty of people across the country just checking on signing day. And they wanted, okay, where does my class rank? Who are the guys I need to know? And I'm just imagining people going to 247sports.com, scrolling through the rankings and being like, so Penn State's, oh, they didn't make the top 10? Oh, that's a bummer. Okay, so where are they, in the 20s? They can't possibly be beyond the 30s, can they? And they scroll all the way down to 130 something on that list, behind plenty of Group of 5 programs, behind, I believe, all but one Power 5 conference or Power 4 conference program. And I mean, in your wildest dreams, when they fire Franklin, and we're talking about what could go wrong for the recruiting class, could you ever imagine a possibility where they got to the finish line with 2 incoming freshmen?
No, I don't think I could look you in the eye or anyone in the eye and say no. But once James Franklin landed at Virginia Tech, when he did, which I believe is one of the earliest P4 head coaching hires following a midseason hiring that we've seen, you kind of got the sense that it was going to take a turn for the worst. I would say following Franklin's firing in the immediate, you experienced maybe, so to speak, a typical number of departures, decommitments, kids exploring additional options in their recruitments while staying committed, because those kids have to do their due diligence following a situation like that. So it was a bad situation from the jump, no matter how you slice it, but it got a lot worse. It entered disaster, embarrassing territory once Franklin landed at Virginia Tech and was able to bring a large chunk, 11 kids in total, to Blacksburg with him and really just raid that Penn State 26 class, with ended with only 2 kids signing on National Sign Day on Wednesday. So it's unlike anything we've ever seen. I know it's unlike anything that was really unfolded at the Power 4 level in the modern recruiting era. Those numbers, they just don't happen. So, of course, Penn State found itself in a unique situation on the wrong end of it at the end of all this.
Yeah, we've been experiencing some form of history here the last several weeks here, and we'll see what's next. But I think I want to get into, before we talk about those 2 guys who signed, and as I said, we'll have Jackson Ford himself on this episode a little bit later for a conversation. But Tyler, what are the ramifications on what this means for Penn State and how it needs to go about its business when that portal opens in January? And I think part of it is, yeah, you need to pursue a bunch of players. You've only got 2 freshmen on the roster as of right now, but you also have to deal with the fact, and we had some pretty significant reporting on Wednesday, I think, at Lions 24/7, where I wrote about a deepening divide within the Penn State football community, within the Penn State locker room, really, about Terry Smith faction versus Pat Kraft faction. There's a group that wants Terry Smith to be the next head coach. They want it to happen now. They want to stop the bleeding. They want to try to galvanize this thing. And they know that it's pretty clear that Terry Smith is the key to roster retention. We saw Tony Rojas put it out there publicly, a 2-year starter for this team at linebacker. He put it out there publicly that he thinks that 90% of the locker room could hit the portal if Terry Smith is not the next head coach. And we've also heard there has been serious resistance on Pat Kraft's end to promoting Terry Smith to coach. A lot more in depth over at lions247.com, in which we broke down the dynamics there. So I encourage you to check out what I wrote on Wednesday. But with that out there, it's no guarantee that you're going to have a robust number situation when you reach January, and then you've got to go hunting. So how important is that span going to be for Penn State and the potential ability to compete at a decent level even in 2026?
Oh, it's going to be crucial, because look, everyone could sit there and say, "Oh, well, hit the portal in January, backfill the holes you need to backfill," and that's all well and good. But the fact of the matter is, you're not taking into account the potential roster exodus that could take place. So numbers it's going to be tough. Penn State is going to have to go absolute full balls to the wall in the portal. That's just what it's going to have to be because the numbers in the high school ranks in that 26 class, barring something unforeseen happening here, they're just not there right now. Now, if a guy like Matt Campbell is the hire at some point, or if it winds up being another sitting college football coach, you have to figure some of those commits who ultimately signed with said school would follow in some capacity. But again, we can't talk in that realm as assuming that's going to happen because we don't know what is going to happen with this head coaching hire. There's no concrete direction right now, one way or another. So that makes the portal in January. Remember, for those who don't follow the recruiting calendar religiously, it opens January 2nd, closes January 16th. Kids can announce their intent to enter the portal throughout December. So I think from Penn State roster retention perspective, that's probably something to keep a very close eye on at this point in time. But it's going to put Penn State in a tough spot because there are going to be kids who depart. I think the number, it's going to be a pretty significant one. And the next staff is going to have to not worry about just filling current holes and inherits. They're going to have to worry about replacing the guys who lead the program in the portal throughout the winter.
I think your dog is weighing in on the coaching. That's a lot to say on the subject.
I think he sees something outside probably. So I don't think he sees Penn State's next head coach outside, though. I'm sorry to disappoint some people.
Yeah, you make a good point, though, Tyler, because the next coach hire, assuming it is a sitting college head coach, and the name that we mentioned earlier this week that had popped up was Brian Dable, former New York Giants coach who was fired last month or 6 weeks ago, whatever it was. He's like the one guy that's not going to bring you anyone from his recent roster. He has been essentially out of play, the way it has been phrased to us the last couple of days. So you're looking at very likelihood, and right now, again, we're leaning toward Matt Campbell, but we just don't know, and I'm not going to go there and say there's a ton of confidence that we're going to have an answer there right now. So if it was Matt Campbell, if it was somebody else, they're going to have to really bring in a lot of the guys they're already familiar with and, plug and play across the 2 deep. That's just how it's going to be. And Tyler, we don't talk about the February signing day very much. When I first got into this industry and when I used to work on the other side of this thing in a college football recruiting staff, that first Wednesday in February was everything. Like that was the Super Bowl. Now you've got the early signing period in December. More people seem to pay attention to the transfer portal. But what the ramifications of signing 2 players, 2 freshmen, and then getting a coach involved, I would imagine by February, how significant could that traditional signing day turn out to be for Penn State?
Really going to come down to what's left. I already dove into the potential for, players from another recruiting class to follow a head coach to Penn State, but it's really just going to come down to who's available because the majority of kids nowadays, large chunk, probably more so than ever, go off the board during this early signing period. And there are a few different reasons for that. One, the number of early enrollees is higher than ever across college football. 2, the earlier you sign, the earlier you're able to lock in that rev share and NIL stuff on the money front. So that's a big part of it as well. So when you look at the February signing period and you question what's next, it's a lot of late risers, kids who had strong senior seasons who were bursting onto the scene late, kids who were maybe have been committed to G5 programs for an extended period of time, but didn't sign during the early signing period for one reason or another. And look, there's nothing necessarily wrong with those kids. Some late risers wind up becoming stars at the next level. Some kids who are G5 kids at one point, we've seen it at Penn State where kids are G5s up until the end, then they become a high-level player at a place like Penn State in a power conference. So those are the kinds of high school level prospects you're going to be keeping an eye on late in the game heading into February. That's going to predominantly make up that sector. And again, we'll have to evaluate it once we know who the head coach is going to be and who from that recruiting class, assuming it is indeed a sitting college football head coach, has the potential to follow, because there is an opportunity before kids enroll at their school of choice to find their way out of their letter of intent. And I'll say this, the letter of intent language now is not quite as binding as it used to be when the national letter of intent itself was in place up until 2024. But with that being said, now with these letter of intent, a lot of it has centers around that NIL and rev share aspect. So that's a difficult thing. Maybe not necessarily difficult, but it's a new hurdle to get over if you want to get out before you enroll. If you enroll at your school of choice, then you're going to have to go ahead and hit the portal in January. So we'll see what ultimately happens with that January portal window in terms of kids entering, and then the February signing period, as you mentioned as well.
I wanted to talk about the guys who signed, and there's only 2 of them, so it's not a long conversation. And as I said, Jackson Ford on the way, conversation with him. Really appreciate him sitting down with us from Malvern Prep here on a Friday morning. But let's talk about Malvern Prep defensive end Jackson Ford. He's 6'4", 240 plus pounds. He's a top 24/7 prospect. He's a 4-star recruit, and he stuck with it. And he was pretty consistent in saying that he planned to stick with it. And then he came through at the other side after an official visit to Virginia Tech along the way. And so he was tested. As you'll hear in the upcoming conversation, he said there were conversations with a lot of schools that reached out to him over the last 7 weeks as Penn State was lacking a head coach. But Tyler, what did you see in Jackson Ford early in the process in terms of Penn State's interest and ultimately making him a part of this class? And then what did you learn about Jackson Ford in the last couple of months as things fell apart and he was the last man standing?
Yeah, I mean, Penn State loved him off the bat when it worked him out 2 summers ago. He picked up an offer from the staff. It was a very significant offer for Jackson Ford as an in-state kid. Penn State was a place he could always see himself going. He visited a few times leading up to that offer. So getting the opportunity to suit up for the Nittany Lions meant a lot. His recruitment went on. It really became a battle between Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, Wisconsin, Kentucky was in that to an extent. The Wildcats got an official visit from Ford. A lot of that had to do with his high school teammate being committed to Kentucky at the time, but that's neither here nor there. At the end of the day, this really came down to Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State. The first time around, Penn State was able to get this one done. When everything went down with James Franklin's firing and, all the guys in the 26 class started exploring additional options, Ford took a little bit different of an approach on a few different fronts. He decided not really to focus on the recruiting process until the end of his senior season at Malvern Prep, which frankly was made easier by the fact that Malvern Prep plays a lot of its games on Saturdays. So even if Jackson Ford wanted to get out and make visits, which, I mean, he really didn't want to from my conversations with him. But even if he wanted to, it was going to be difficult with those Saturday games on the schedule. Virginia Tech was the lone visit for Jackson Ford just before the beginning of the early signing period. And it came after he returned to Penn State, met with the staff, met with Pat Kraft. He was in attendance for that Nebraska game, the final home game of the year. And Virginia Tech continued to push, unsurprisingly, because, again, they made a lot of movement on that Penn State 2026 recruiting class. Just familiarity played a big part. And Ford wanted to get down to Blacksburg, check things out. But at the end of the day, there were so many things that Jackson Ford loved about Penn State that he knew it was the place that he wanted to be in spite of everything that was going on. He still saw it as a place he can succeed on and off the field. And you give him a lot of credit because it's not like he didn't have options, right? You said it. Other programs were calling him. Granted, he didn't really entertain them, but he could have. He very easily could have entertained those programs. It was Syracuse, Rutgers, Pitt, the whole Northeastern ilk of programs that are at the Power 4 level. They were reaching out, trying to make a move. Ford really just wasn't about it. Again, no surprise that he popped down to Virginia Tech before the beginning of the early sign period, and he had every single chance to go sign with the Hokies, but he didn't. He stuck with Penn State, and I think the kid deserves a lot of credit because that's not an easy decision. But when you love a place, you love a place, and when it comes to Jackson Ford, he loved Penn State.
You'll learn a lot more about Jackson Ford, folks, in a matter of minutes, as I said, but he got some company late. And we got some wind that this might be happening in the 24, 36 hours preceding signing day, and it did. Peyton Fzone, in-state quarterback from Nazareth. He's the only the second in-state quarterback to join Penn State via scholarship, along with Bo Perbula, going back to 2011. Not something we see very often here in the state of Pennsylvania. Falzone's a guy, we've talked about it. You love the athletic traits, 6'5", 200-pound range, guy who's a swimmer. He's got the kind of physique that you can really just kind of project out years from now. What will that look like? A ton of frame to work with, and a really impressive athlete that, as we had discussed earlier, man, he would be pretty tantalizing as a tight end, but he's going to take a shot at quarterback. That's where we saw him work in camps over the summer, including with Danny O'Brien, Penn State's quarterback's coach. He has spent time driving out to Ohio from his home to work with Brad Mendler. Mendler, of course, is the personal quarterback trainer for Drew Aller and Ethan Grunkmeyer. So you're adding another pupil of that same QB trainer. And Tyler, a long and winding road for Falzone. This was ultimately his fourth commitment. And in this case, it was a signing, but started with Virginia Tech, Penn State, Auburn, now back to Penn State. As best you can gather, how did this one come to this conclusion?
Well, contrary to what a lot of people will tell you on social media, because there's a lot of opinions out there on social media that are just flat out incorrect. They were still recruiting inside of Lash going into the early signing period. They weren't sitting around watching YouTube videos in there. They were still working the phones, trying to make some things shake, trying to get some guys on board in addition to Jackson Ford during the early signing period. And Peyton Fzone kind of presented them a fresh opportunity to do that when he decommitted from Auburn on Monday. Auburn, like Penn State, found itself searching for a new head coach this season, excuse me. Unlike Penn State, Auburn has a new head coach in place. Peyton Fzone met with Alex Golesh, decided to take things in a different direction shortly after that meeting, and that left the door wide open because Peyton Fzone, graduating high school later this month, he was going to be an early enrollee at his school of choice, kind of up against the clock. And Penn State had a lot going for it right off the bat in the sense, not just from a numbers perspective and needing a quarterback in the class and all that good stuff that the Nittany Lions face at this juncture, but State College, please, Peyton Fzone already knows well from his original commitment to the Nittany Lions from April up until the end of June when he flipped to Auburn. He knows the people in the building. How many of those people in the building right now who are responsible for this will be there next year? I don't know. We know Terry Smith played a big part in this. Trace McSorley played a big part in this. Kenny Sanders played a big part in this. And look, it's the same things we said about Peyton Fzone in the summer that we're going to say right now. Has all the athletic gifts, all the athletic traits in the world to be a successful athlete in college football at the Power 4 level. But he needs to continue checking boxes developmentally if that's going to be at quarterback when it's all said and done. I think the biggest hindrance facing Peyton Fzone going into his first year at Penn State, it's not work ethic. It's definitely not work ethic. We know that. It's not athleticism. It's not arm strength. I think it's the fact that he missed out on a lot of valuable football as a senior. He had a really strong start to his senior season before he suffered a clavicle injury that knocked him out for the rest of the year. You and I believe we talked about this several times during the summer. We felt the most beneficial thing for Peyton Fzone moving forward, coming out of the summer, was just getting that more and more game experience. Not that, he's new to quarterback and needs to learn the position. Just continue getting that seasoning. Put the mechanical improvements that you made during the offseason working with Brad Mandler to use in game action, just to get more comfortable before the beginning of your collegiate career. Fzone looked great when he got the chance to do that. He just didn't get the chance to do it for that long. So he's going to have to continue developing in the areas we said he needs to continue developing mechanically, accuracy-wise. The kid's going to give it his all. We know that. And like Jackson Ford, I think his decision to sign with Penn State in the face of such uncertainty, he deserves a lot of credit for that. I know some people rhetorically, where else was he going to go this late in the cycle? It doesn't matter. He signed to a program with no head coach. Similar to Jackson, same exact thing as Jackson Ford. Those two deserve praise in very, very similar manners.
Yeah. And he was pretty public at his signing day ceremony I believe it was at Nazareth High School.
It was, yeah.
About, hey, I want Terry. I think Terry Smith should be the guy. The latest. It's the current players, it's the incoming players. We'll see. I think Peyton Fzone is in it no matter who the next head coach is, but I thought it was notable that he said that. And one other thing that we picked up from Peyton Fzone this summer, because we were sharing the field with him a lot for these prospect camps, gravitational personality, a guy that you're happy to get face to face with. You can see him when it's time to rally the troops, those 10 guys around him. I think he's got that in him. I don't know about him as a quarterback who takes you to a higher level in the Big Ten quite yet. And you laid out all the reasons why. And my concern here is you're stacking him on top of a 2025 recruiting class that featured Beckham Kritza, who I had the same concerns about in different manner. And Kritza didn't seem like the staff viewed him as game ready. I know he was sidelined technically as out on the availability report for, I believe, 10 of 12 games. But even when he was healthy, Liam Clifford, a fifth-year senior wide receiver, was being utilized as quarterback 2 behind Ethan Grunkemeyer. So we learned essentially nothing about Beckham Kritza this year. He didn't throw a pass in the blue-white game during the spring. And the feedback that I got still screams project. It still screams that he is a project at that position. And I think this is another project, the position. Plenty of traits you like, but he's not a guy that's coming to campus. And in 2026, you can think if you've got to turn to him in a game situation in the Big Ten, you're going to feel okay about that. And we know that Ethan Grunkemeyer has said all the right things. I think he's made his case on the field. I think he's made his case in the locker room to be QB1 for this team moving forward. But does the next head coach have a quarterback that he wants to bring to campus? Does Ethan Grunkemeyer still see a fit when the dust settles after a coaching change? Quarterback's a really in-play situation, and I think it's still an area that you could see for the first time ever Penn State explore the transfer portal. We have not seen them add a player out of the transfer portal at quarterback. Tyler, before we say goodbye to you and get over to Jackson Ford, any final thoughts on what the next few weeks mean for Penn State and where their roster is going to be? Because I think people are well aware of this now. Like, you're not just our recruiting guy, but when the transfer portal period really gets rolling, you're our point man there, and you're going to be able to bring a lot of people's stuff. So we're waiting for game 13. We're waiting for a bowl game. People are starting to forget about that because there's so many things happening. What do you view as kind of the bridge between now and January? What are the priorities that Penn State needs to do? What are the answers that they need to get?
First things first, this needs to get done. There needs to be a face of the program. There needs to be a head coach in place. And I see it again. Go back to social media, see people, oh, well, at this point, there's no rush. No, there's still a rush because we're at the point of the year where conversations are taking place from a roster retention perspective, and that means money. You know, it's a lot harder to have those conversations about a player's future at a program when you're sitting in the room talking to him and no one in the room knows who the next head coach is going to be yet. So this needs to get done sooner rather than later, if for no other reason, this one, because retention is going to be crucial for what this 2026 Penn State roster looks like. We touched on it earlier, so I'm not going to go on the whole diatribe again about how important that is. But you've got to have a calming, consistent, known presence in these meetings when we're talking about roster retention. It's just a lot harder to keep kids on board, nail down numbers, nail down future plans when there's no head coach in place. That's just the fact of the matter. So this has to get done. Beyond that, behind the scenes, you're going to continue to see portal scouting take place. You know, Penn State is going to gear up for the portal, making big runs at these players. And that's probably difficult to fathom right now because we have yet to reach the point of the year where a lot of guys are expressing their intent to enter. But trust me, there are waves of guys that are going to enter that Penn State is going to be very interested in. There's already an early wave of FCS talent that is, I think personally, can help a program like Penn State, especially now where we're I hate to even say this, but we're kind of entering a territory where Penn State's numbers it could very well reach a time where beggars can't be choosers. You're going to have to take some flyers in the portal. You're going to have to be maybe not as selective as you would be when you're working with a smaller number situation.
It's going to be kind of a Frankenstein roster. It's going to be a piece here, a piece there. Glue this together. That's the reality right now. And as far as I can tell, it's going to be a Frankenstein roster. Can you win with the Frankenstein roster? Can you have a good season? Maybe you do find some diamonds in the rough, but we are going to get to kickoff next year. And I guarantee you, we are not going to have our head wrapped around what this team is going to look like and how the depth chart is going to perform. It's just get used to that uncertainty, that unclarity, because we're living in it.
Yeah, and I mean, you could look at Dan Mullen over at UNLV. He brought in like 70 transfers, and they've had a very good season. But not to knock the competition out there. I mean, this is the Big Ten. It's a whole lot more difficult to bring in that level of guys and get it all done. So we'll see. But trust me, it's not a dead time in recruiting. I know it's a dead period now for the first time ever. The entirety of December is a dead period. So you can't get anyone on campus, which might honestly be a good thing for Penn State with the way this is going. But still plenty taking place inside of Lash. So we're just going to have to continue waiting and seeing until the new head coach is hired.
Something else I'll pose that I mentioned on the message board a couple of days ago is you have a vacuum right now. Who is sitting down across from your players as you're trying to figure out negotiations for NIL money right now? Who is getting a pulse for who's entering the portal? Who's going to stay? Normally that'd be your general manager, your head coach. You don't have a full-time head coach right now. Terry Smith, with that interim title, can't look these guys in the eyes and say he has a firm grasp of what their 2026 financial situation will look like. You don't have a general manager. He, along with most of your front office, followed James Franklin to Virginia Tech. They were part of them signing former Penn State signees of Penn State prospects on Wednesday. And to me, what I've heard is the de facto GM right now is Pat Kraft. And Pat Kraft ain't the guy to get in that locker room right now and talk to guys, because they're pretty mad. They're pretty mad that they feel like Terry Smith is not getting a full look, as they would describe it. And so if Pat Kraft is the guy that you're trusting to figure out NIL plans and 2026 strategies with the current locker room, as things stand in the climate here on Friday morning, December 5th, that's concerning to me. And that's a void to me. And that's got to get addressed. So, hey, we'll figure it out. We'll as best we can at Lions247.com. Tyler, you've done a great job. We're going to get over to Jackson Ford after a quick break, but appreciate you for hopping on with us, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you having me.
This episode of the Lions 24/7 podcast continues with focus on one of Penn State's two signees from the early signing period this week. As we covered on our last episode, after going through so much of the coaching search, there is a really impressive standout in this class who stuck with a lot when other guys didn't. We're not going to blame others for the reasons that they went elsewhere. It's an interesting situation, but I think it's been a week where Jackson Ford has gotten a lot of praise from Penn State fans who have paid attention, and they're very curious what his career will look like in Happy Valley when he makes his move. We're going to get a chance to check in on him right now as Jackson Ford joins the Lions 24/7 podcast. As I told you before we started recording, congratulations, Jackson, on nailing down your college plans, coming to Penn State. I look forward to seeing you here on this campus not too long down the road.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I mean, the obvious is you had a lot of friends around you. They might still be your friends, but that all of a sudden that group chat became just kind of a solo conversation. What was it like to you to get to the finish line, put pen to paper for Penn State, and get the reaction? I don't know if you were able to tell, but people within the Nittany Lions community were very appreciative to see you sticking through.
Yeah. It kind of meant a lot. Obviously during the season, like the thing with like Coach Franklin getting fired, it definitely sucked because I've just built such a strong connection with him, and he's definitely built up the program. And seeing all of, like, my other recruits, all my other brothers, like, decommit, it hurt. But at the end of the day, like, they're still my brothers, the same, if they stick with or if they left. And I want nothing but the best for them. But honestly, being able to sign with Penn State, I made my commitment in June, and it's something that I said I was going to do and go through with no matter what happened, and I meant that. It was just like a dream since I was a little kid to come play for Penn State. I didn't watch too much college football growing up, but when I did, I was watching Penn State, and it's always just a school I wanted to play from. When I got the offer my sophomore year, it felt life-changing to me, and that feeling stuck with me, and being able to commit and make it official yesterday, it really meant a lot. And then being able to just get embraced by the fans also meant a lot too.
When you were working through this process, and obviously there was plenty of reason to maybe reconsider things, you mentioned it being a dream to wear that Nittany Lions uniform, to have this opportunity. What else was on your mind that convinced you, hey, you know what? I'm just going to stay the course. I'm going to sign with Penn State. I'm going to get to campus, and I'm going to take my shot.
Yeah. Well, I really believe in everything that Penn State is and everything that they have, as far as the staff and the people inside the building, from the coaches to just the trainers and the assistants. And I really think they have the ability to build up any player, no matter how talented they are. So like stuff like that just gives me a lot of faith in the program, knowing that they can help me grow on the field and also help me grow off the field and build connections with my peers and past alumni from the school. So it's really exciting.
Who's been kind of the main points of conversation for you and communication for you with Penn State since James Franklin was fired? Obviously, we're still waiting for maybe there being more staff turnover and some changes coming with the new head coach whenever that's announced. But when you had to kind of ask questions about the situation, when you were trying to get answers toward the end of this process, who were you speaking with?
Yeah, I was speaking really heavily with my coach, like my position coach. And then I also was speaking to Coach DJ Bryan. He's just my recruiting associate. So I speak to him every time I go on a visit or anything, like anytime I'm trying to get up here. And then also Coach Terry. I've been in contact with him along throughout this process, this like couple month span process. Those three have been the main points of contact.
Jackson, I should mention at the top, out of Malvern Prep, 4-star prospect at 24/7 Sports. He's a 4-star prospect in the 24/7 Sports composite, which is the industry average. One of the top 25 edge rushers, one of the top 10 players in the state of Pennsylvania. And what did this mean to your family? What did this mean to the people closest to you, whether it's at Malvern Prep or within your household, that you are now going to be a Penn State football player?
Yeah, obviously it means a lot. My parents they've supported me throughout like my whole journey. They never pushed me to play football, but I just wanted to. I fell in love with it at a like very young age, and they've just supported that dream throughout my whole life. They would drive me hours away to play tournaments. They would, pay for me to train. They would, I eat a lot. They have to pay for a lot of that food. They have to pay for me to come to Malvern. So just to see their sacrifices and all the effort they've put into me kind of bear fruit, it meant a lot to not only me, but to the rest of my family. And they were just like, beyond happy for me. I think they might have been more happy for me than me. And I really appreciated that. I appreciated everything they've done for me. And I think they feel the same.
You were over 20 scholarship offers. I know you had a lot of opportunities along the way. How much conversation did you have with someone like James Franklin? How many other schools were trying to get you to explore their campus down the stretch? Can you tell us a little bit about when this thing got kind of crazy? People were knocking on your door. How much outside interest was there beyond Penn State?
Yeah, well, especially after Coach Franklin got fired, it definitely ramped up a little bit. There definitely was some other coaches talking to me before, like even after I committed, before Franklin got fired. A lot of the schools from like my top 4, my top 8 were still kind of in contact. And then after Coach Franklin got fired, obviously more schools got into the mix. Even though I didn't like post out there that my recruitment was open or anything like that, or I decommitted, other schools were still trying to get in contact with me. And then just like the same principles I had, just like I know the schools that I liked. I know I chose this school for a reason. So, I mean, I really do appreciate the other schools reaching out, and I love that, and I love everyone in those buildings. But Penn State is where I committed to, and that's where I plan to play my football at.
Jackson, do I have this correct that you spent some time at Virginia Tech prior to signing? Yeah. I mean, I've gotten to know James for 9 years, but he was wearing a Penn State polo shirt, a Penn State sweatshirt. He's always been that guy to me. Can you tell me what it was like seeing him on a different campus, wearing a different team's logo, and maybe what he was trying to give you as his vision down there?
Yeah, it was definitely different because every picture I have of James Franklin, like he saved in my phone, Penn State shirt on, Penn State logo. So it definitely was odd seeing him in like orange and maroon, but still the same guy. Great campus, great place to be. I think it was, I think I did not enjoy it. I did not enjoy it.
Yeah.
It was nice, but at the end of the day, I really just wanted to be at Penn State. And like nothing against those guys, but I just wanted to be in Happy Valley.
Earlier, you talked about the importance of your position coach, Deion Barnes, the guy who played for Penn State, was a very successful edge rusher. He's now been the position coach for a few years now. What is it that stands out about that relationship for you, and what are you most looking forward to about the opportunity to being with him on a daily basis?
Yeah, I really appreciate how honest he is. Like along the recruiting process, a lot of coaches will try to sell you like a dream, and a dream that may not happen. But Coach Barnes, I took an official visit, and he was just straight as an arrow. He was just like, this is what you need to work on. Like, you're not good at this, this, and this. And then this is how I'm going to get you better. And this is how we're going to work on it every day and craft you. And he's on. He said, you might not play right away, but I'm going to put you in the best position for you to be able to compete. I mean, like just that honesty and like just seeing what he's done with other players, it gets me excited and gives me hope in him. And how he laid out the plan for me already, that's something that I really liked. And I'm just confident in his ability to coach players and bring them to their fullest potential. So I'm just hoping he can do that with me.
When you talk about your upcoming development with him and when you kind of just focus on it on your own right, day by day, what do you look at as the most important steps year one on a college campus to put yourself in a position to have a successful college career?
Yeah, I think it's like, to me, it's like really obvious because like nothing's going to just fall in your lap. You got to go work for it. It doesn't matter how talented you are, how strong you are, how tall you are, how fast you are. Like everyone in college is exactly like you. Everyone was talented. Everyone is 4 or 5 stars coming out of high school. They all had 25 offers. Like, if you want to separate yourself, you got to work harder than everyone else, and that's kind of the mentality you have to have, I think, if you want to be successful in anything you do in life. So just getting up there. I'm getting up early, just putting my head down and just trying to work.
Are you going to be up there in January, or we saw some guys get to campus in like late December last year? Are you looking like January?
Yeah, January 10th. I graduate January 9th.
Good stuff. The countdown's on. On that subject, what do you want to get done at home in the next month? Because you're going to hit the ground running. Life's going to change a lot. How important is family time? How important is friend time? And what are you doing in the next 4 weeks to try to set yourself up to hit the ground running? Because it's easier said than done, mentally, physically, being away from home, all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, after the season, I think our season ended about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I gave myself like about half the week off, just getting to spend time with my family and my friends. I went to some of their football games and some of their basketball. Their basketball season started as well. I've definitely been going to their games more often, hanging out, and then talk to my family. And then I also got to see my family over Thanksgiving. But other than that half a week stunt, I've just kind of been just back in the weight room, on the field. I got some great athletes up here at Malvern Prep, and they've been helping me work on the field. And then we have a great coach up here who's helping me in the gym as well. Just trying to prepare my body. I know I'm not going to get in the exact shape I need to be to handle Penn State, but I can prepare myself the best I can while I'm here to be able to compete at a good level.
I know on your 24/7 Sports profile, we've got you at 6'4". What kind of weight are you carrying on that frame right now? What's the targeted weight that Penn State maybe sees you ideally as a freshman? And certainly if you wanted to get involved in Big Ten trenches in 2026.
Yeah. Right now I'm 242. And I think they'd definitely want to put more weight, like 10 to 20 more pounds on me, just because obviously the Big Ten linemen are very big, 300 plus. So I think, to 260 and still be able to move explosively and quickly and still have bend is where they'd want me. So
how have you kind of built your body over your high school career? Have you always been kind of a bigger guy? Have you had issues putting on weight over the course of your career? Were you 215 pounds as a sophomore? Can you talk us through that kind of journey for you?
Yeah, so I actually put on throughout my whole high school career. I think it's on Max Preps as well. I've put on 10 pounds every year.
Okay.
I would not saying it's not like hard. It kind of just comes naturally, but I think that's because I'm still growing. But my freshman year, I was 215, sophomore 225, junior 235, and then now I was pushing 245 during the season. I'm 242 right now. But it's like hasn't been hard. I haven't been able to I haven't had to think extra hard about it and stuff. I mean, I just eat what I feel like I need to eat, and then I just go out and just play football.
That sounds like a good way to do it. We hear some guys putting on 50 pounds in 1 year with a growth spurt. You've been a lot more incremental.
Right.
When you talk about your game as an edge rusher, as a defender, what are the traits that you're most proud of right now? What are the traits that you think popped for Penn State and all these other college football programs when they turned on the tape and ultimately presented you with a scholarship offer?
Yeah, I would say probably my explosiveness and my speed, and then also how I'm able to just combine that with my strength, and then a motor. Even if you don't win the rep right away, just to have the motor to keep fighting to the end of the play, that'll make you a lot of more plays than just winning your reps straight out. So high motor, speed, and then just aggressiveness at the point of attack, I think, are some of my best attributes.
When you get to campus, do you have any idea who your roommate is yet? A very important part of the freshman process.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's going to be Peyton. It's just going to be me.
I was going to say, I mean, if it's not Peyton, it's a mystery man at this stage.
Right.
Peyton's another guy who's in state. I don't know how much time you've really spent with him at prospect camps or at other maybe events here in Pennsylvania. What was your reaction to him joining the class, and what did it mean to have a friend instead of just being the one-man show?
Right. Having Peyton commit, seeing that he committed was kind of like getting a weight off my shoulder. I know I wasn't going in it by myself. And I would have someone obviously my age, my grade, my class to kind of lean on in a time like this, because it's going to be a grind for sure. And just seeing him commit, I was so happy, just because I known him before. He was committed to Penn State before, and it sucked to see him leave. But then he just came back, and I was super happy for him, for his family, and then obviously for me. Like, I was happy to have a roommate, a teammate, and like someone my age that I'm going to be able to go there early with. And we hadn't talked much before, but after that, we've been in contact these past 2 days, and we've just been chatting. He's a great guy.
Now, with Peyton joining the class, you mentioned it was kind of a weight off your shoulders in some ways. Did you ever take some moments down the stretch this week, maybe, to be like, to realize how bizarre the situation was, that you were the only commit in early December for Penn State? Did that kind of sink in any significant ways for you?
Yeah. For me, it was obviously kind of, it's a little funny. Like, wow, I was really like, we had like 24, 22 kids in the class, and then now it's just me, and I was like, it's funny how that ended up, but it didn't really make me mad or sad. It was kind of just like, it just like lights a fire under your butt. Like, now you really got to go get it. Now you really got to, work, because it's the only kid. Like, no one else can lift this class up. It's just you. So, yeah.
I'm curious, on signing day, after it was out there that you wrapped things up, did you get a big wave of messages from like strangers? Did you hear from a lot of people more than you maybe had thought? Because usually there's 25 to 30 guys to kind of share the love, to share the attention. And I think right now Penn State fans are, they're in a rough place. And so I think they kind of, as far as I could tell, they were embracing you a little bit extra.
Yeah. I definitely did get some texts from some people I haven't talked to in a while. Some people at Penn State, some people I don't even know where they're from. But honestly, I loved it all. It just makes me more excited to get up in January, just to be able to like have people to work for. Like, obviously, I want to work hard for myself, but to have like people behind me that want to see me do good, it just makes me want to work a little hard extra. Like, maybe on that last rep where I'm completely gassed, I'll think about that and then push myself the extra mile.
What is your thought on what you'd like to see, and not necessarily a name, but what would you like to see the traits be of Penn State's next head coach as a leader? And how important is it for you and everybody in the program that you have an answer pretty soon?
Yeah. It's huge to get a name soon. I think that would really change a lot of things. I think that would restore a lot of faith in some people. And like a coach that I wanted to see in the locker room is like just someone that can uplift not only himself, but the people around him, his players, his staff. Someone that can, really, his personality is infectious. Like, he walks in a room, you feel him. You want to be there. You want to play for him, because if you get a coach you don't want to play for, then you're not going to play good. So, like, for example, Terry, I feel like he's done a really good job. Just bringing like the culture back and the life back into the team. I was there for the Nebraska game, and everyone looked alive. They looked like excited to play. And then in the locker room, it was a common theme. Coach Terry was like, "You guys are playing your butts off," and then the players were like, "We're doing that for you." So it's like he's lit that fire back under them, and I feel like he's got the team on his back right now, and he's really carrying them to this finish line. They just made they got eligible for a bowl game. They won out their last games, and I feel like that a lot of that has to do with Terry. But obviously, the players in the locker room are really excited to play.
Well, Jackson, just a few weeks from now, we'll be seeing you around town. Hope running into you downtown State College, seeing you at football events, and so look forward to you getting a chance to start that chapter. But I hope you do enjoy these next few weeks at home with your loved ones, with your friends. Senior year doesn't come again down the road for you, so have fun with it. And thank you so much for spending some time with us here on the Lions 24/7 podcast.
Thank you for having me.
That's going to be a wrap for this episode of the Lions 24/7 podcast. As we said, a lot hanging over our heads right now with this Penn State coaching search. We'll come back to you with another podcast reacting to if some news drops down the road. We'll talk about that here. But before we get to that episode, you will certainly get our coverage at Lions247.com on the impact, on the analysis, if there is a hire made. We've been chatting with a lot of people about Matt Campbell so far. We can see if that continues into Friday, through Friday, and if we have an answer here pretty soon for Penn State, or if we get back to square one potentially. Who knows at this point, this far into the process, just about 8 weeks. But a big thanks to Tyler Calvaruso and to Jackson Ford for joining me on this episode of the podcast. And of course, a big thanks to you for listening or watching. I am Tyler Donahue, and this has been the Lions 24/7 podcast.